Hello, everybody, and welcome into Senior Living Live. I'm Melissa Lee, and this, of course, is a show dedicated to discussing all topics for seniors. Joining me today in this special interview is Victoria Vetter. She is the Executive Project Coordinator at the Arbor Company. Victoria, you look lovely today. Thank you for taking the time to join us here today. You have been a very busy woman. We will be discussing that throughout this interview, but first, you have been with Arbour for about a year and a half. What does your job entail?
When I started with the Arbor Company, I did a various of tasks to keep all the trains on the track and arriving at the station at the same time. So I worked on things such as meeting preparedness. So when we had to bring folks in from the communities or from the senior leadership team to arrange that meeting space and the meals and the activities, I supported training through the Relias platform and monitoring our learning management system. And I did a lot of other things to support the different disciplines with moving forward their special projects and initiatives that might have gone on the back burner just managing normal daily operations. So there's many aspects that were fulfilling, and it was a lot of variety, which I liked.
Sure, and you kind of got your start within senior living as a senior care, a memory care director, I should say. So you were actually on site at the properties, at the communities. Then you kind of moved to the business side of things, but something happened along the way, and that happens to be the coronavirus, which has impacted everybody across the entire world. How has that impacted your job at the Arbor Company?
Yeah, so around the beginning of March, we were starting to see the coronavirus in the media and in our professional circles really start to heat up the conversation. It was really starting to be pushed to the forefront of, I think we need to prepare. I think we need to really seriously get our preparation plans in place. And a big piece of that was PPE. And, there was all this conversation about masks, how do we protect for this, the droplet precautions? How do we address that? And that was masking. And it was looking at gowns and huge quantities of gloves and face shield before in senior living. So after starting on the task force, we had different conversations of how we were going to address this. And that was really to get somebody on the PPE stage to coordinate this. And that so happened to be me.
So PPE, I think almost everybody knows what that is. It's as you mentioned, it's protective clothing, protective items, shields, face masks. And the reason we know about this is because it was so hard to get pieces of PPE for doctors, for hospitals. Governors were fighting for any piece of large quantities of PPE. It's very hard to come by. So how did you manage to net hundreds of thousands of pieces of PPE over the course of the last few months?
Yes, that's a great question. PPE was definitely making international headlines about shortages across the world as a result of this. Many of the production companies that were producing in normal worlds our PPE were down and out. Production was stopped, which posed a really unique challenge. So in the beginning of March, we had put in our first order to our routine vendor. We normally purchase things like soap and paper towels from them. So we thought, let's just put in our normal order. We were well ahead of the game with our professional circles. So we thought we were golden. Yeah. Well, this was right when this big bubble of corona started to spark up, and testing was becoming a little bit more advanced. So we were starting to get a lot of different results throughout the country. And the government had to do government officials and their teams that were going into these really hot spots and serving them. So our initial order had been diverted to the national reserves. And we were on really tight allocations for normal things like gloves and thermometers and soap and hand sanitizer and masks and gowns were non-existent in the normal channels that we would see, because these weren't normal times.
Sure.
So we had to get a little creative. We started thinking about our professional circles, and we came in contact with a great resource, TechSage, who helped us with our mask orders, and we were able to secure really bulk quantities very quickly and allocate those out then to the communities. And then for our gowns, we worked with the image group that really ramped up production and got our inventory pushed out where it needed to go to our distributor. So it was a lot of flexibility, a lot of late night calls, a lot of counting, a lot of burn rate calculating, because you need to know how much you need. You know, everybody, when they go to a vendor, they say, well, we need a lot. You know, we need everything you got. Well, that's not true.
Sure.
They're going to hang up the phone. They want you to know that you know what your burn rates are and your par levels, and that you're confident in the ask that you're giving. And that's also how you can work on negotiating pricing and really exercising some financial stewardship through this time that no one had expected.
Right. I don't think people really know or understand. I think most people would believe that this is mandatory, right, for senior living communities. But come to find out, it's not. So can you talk about sort of the additional steps that the Arbor Company has taken to really go above and beyond to ensure that those at their communities are taken care of?
Absolutely. So it is in normal practice that every single community maintains some level of personal protective equipment. That's a standard practice. In order to comply with the CDC's guidance for communal living settings like assisted livings, we had nowhere had that level of inventory on site. It wasn't just the Arbor Company, it was everywhere across the country. Hospitals were scrambling. Some of the biggest hospitals in the country were scrambling to get this level of inventory to maintain compliance with the CDC guidelines, because it's a matter of life and death. This was not something that, you know, we could play around with. This had to be a perfect science of you either have it or you don't. And if you don't, there are severe consequences. So it was something that we all had to think very quickly and very accurately on, because one misstep really could be grave and severe.
Sure. And so when you're getting all of this PPE delivered from China, I mean, really anywhere in the world you can get it. It's coming in big shipments. Is your office big enough to handle this? I'm going to probably say no, but where are you storing all of this PPE? And we're talking about 42 senior living communities in 11 different states.
Yes, I myself, when we put that in that first order in the beginning of March, don't think I remotely could grasp the capacity of how big these orders were going to be, because the original plan was, oh, they'll get delivered here. Victoria will just, divvy them up.
Sure.
Well, that was not going to work. So we had to get really creative and bring in to the loop a great partner for the Arbor Company for over a decade, and that is Keystone Press. Keystone Press so an order would come in, we'd put it in an order, the order would get delivered to a fulfillment center, and then that fulfillment center would send it to our now new Arbor distributing company, which was Keystone Press. So they'd send this bulk quantity to Keystone. I would work with the Keystone David Trapp to get the quantities we needed allocated to each community. So then their team would make those allocations of quantities and then send them back out to the communities. There was times that these boxes were not evenly counted. So it wasn't just to say that one box had 200 masks and then you can just ship out that box again.
Sure.
There were mismatched quantities in the boxes. The boxes were sometimes damaged or unrecognizable. So this was, I can't emphasize enough, these certainly were not, and there was a lot of work that went into every step that had to happen very quickly and very accurately, because they were going out to our front lines to keep them safe and our residents safe.
Sure. And just for everybody who's watching, Keystone Press is exactly that. That is a printing company that has been in business for almost 50 years in the city of
Mhm.
Atlanta. And this has helped them really keep their doors open when they lost 90% of their business
Mhm.
due to the coronavirus. So there's a lot of thinking outside of the box across the board, from the Arbor Company to Keystone, everybody trying to find a way to help. But at the same time, you're keeping these guys busy.
Mhm.
Keystone, they are busy in making the deliveries, as you mentioned, and holding on to
Mhm.
the numerous amounts of PPE that are coming in that have been ordered by the Arbor Company. So this has allowed you to get back on site, correct? And how are you enjoying that?
Yeah. Yes. So I did have a period of 30 days where I spent at Arbor Cascade serving that
Hmm.
team and those residents. And it was the most humbling experience of my entire career. And I think it's going to be incredibly hard to top that. I worked with the staff to make sure that they were knew what their responsibilities were. I worked with PPE compliance. I worked with the department head team, and altogether there was about four of us from the corporate team that were on permanently on site,
Hmm.
and it was an incredible experience for all of us. And we still check in. We've created almost like a little support group within us, and we always say we're very uniquely connected after that experience, and I wouldn't have traded it for the world.
And one final aspect that has sort of been added to this is this We Care hotline. What is this?
The We Care hotline we established at the start of the pandemic when it was
Hmm.
really starting to rev up. And now it was not just this is an over there thing,
Hmm.
this is now coming to our house. So, how are we going to stay true to the Arbor Company? And how are we going to be responsive and compassionate? And how are we going to support the communities with talking with families when they're trying to do a million other things?
Hmm.
So we established this hotline. It would accept calls and emails. And I had managed the hotline for a period of time with those incoming calls. So when a positive case hit a community, the families were directed to call into this hotline at all hours of the day and night,
Hmm.
to allow the community time to address the needs at the community on
Sure.
site, and to also balance the strong need for communication from the families. So we stay true to what the Arbor Company always says, which is we listen, we care, we respond. Here's
Sure.
how we're going to do it. We committed to doing it within 24 hours, and we are going to be incredibly attentive, responsive, and compassionate, because these are all real fears. No matter what the inquiry was, every single inquiry got addressed.
Yeah, and so this interview really is to let you know and to sort of pull back the curtain a little bit of what goes on behind the scenes for senior living, especially during this time right now in the middle of a pandemic. What is going on behind the scenes to ensure the safety of so many beloved residents? For again, for the Arbor Company, for 42 different senior living communities, and all of the individuals who call those communities home. So before I leave you, I do have to ask you on a personal note, how was it graduating with your master's social distancing style?
Yeah. Yes. So in the midst of this, I think I had almost forgotten. I was part of the class of 2020
Mhm.
with my master's of science in healthcare administration from St. Joe's University in Philadelphia.
Mhm.
So I was not able to walk, um, but it was incredibly rewarding that while that day looked
Sure.
nothing like what my family in Pennsylvania and I had thought, it was incredibly fulfilling to know I was exactly where I was supposed to be doing what I trained and studied so hard to do. So it was really seeing that come full circle then,
Sure.
and applying that knowledge in a very unique and special way.
Yeah. Well, we're just going to put an S on your chest, big superwoman right now, in your personal life, and obviously with the Arbor Company, for all that you do and all that you continue to do, even as of today. So we thank you for all of your hard work, all the long nights, and congratulations on your master's degree. Just a huge accomplishment. And again, thank you for the time you have taken with us today. Victoria Vetter, the Executive Project Coordinator at the Arbor Company. Thanks for the insight. Now, thank you to those of you watching Senior Living Live. For more content, you can log on to seniorlivinglive.com. Have a great day, everybody.